Welcome back to Advanced Public Relations. Chapter 2 deals with the basic techniques used in public relations. First, we will examine the fundamental purpose of public relations. Then we will briefly review the history of public relations. Early public relations used a concept called propaganda, which we will examine. Several people set the stage for modern public relations practice. Then the consumerism movement affected how companies deal with consumers, and companies try to measure the cost and rewards of public relations. The fundamental purpose of public relations is to affect the attitudes or opinions of the relevant public. Three basic techniques are used. Rhetoric uses press releases, speeches, and news conferences. Symbols are often used to convey an emotional appeal to the public. And slogans are short phrases that are easy to remember, such as "like a good neighbor" or "make it your way." From the dawn of recorded history, leaders have used public relations to sway public opinion. Ancient Greeks, such as Socrates, and Romans, such as Cicero, became famous because of their speeches. Paintings and other artworks told narratives, such as the stained glass icons in churches that illustrate biblical stories. Once the printed press was invented, written messages were used to convey concepts. For example, Martin Luther wrote a letter of protest and nailed it to the door of a church. His protest would probably have gone unnoticed, like countless other protests before him, except that printed copies of the letter were distributed across Europe. Today, videos are frequently used in public relations to convey concepts. Symbols are very powerful tools to invoke emotions. Sometimes the symbols are events, such as the 9/11 attack on the World Trade Towers. Often people become symbols, such as Dr. Martin Luther King or Rosa Parks. Things can also become symbols, such as the Statue of Liberty as a symbol of freedom. Images may be the most powerful emotional stimuli, such as the picture of the Founding Fathers signing the Declaration of Independence. Slogans are short, powerful statements that sum up a concept. Often slogans can become a rallying cry that drowns out opposing opinions. The word propaganda comes from the Latin word that means to spread the Christian faith. The early churches used propaganda for emotional appeals, such as small paintings of biblical scenes, which are called icons. This is different from public relations because propaganda is designed to generate an emotional response rather than just to convey information. George Creel first used the term to describe the government efforts to promote World War I, and he even wrote a book with that title. However, the German Nazis took the concept to extreme limits during World War II. President Woodrow Wilson appointed George Creel to head the Committee for Public Information. This group created posters, speeches, press releases, and newsreels, which are short films shown after a movie, in order to promote World War I. The committee also created controversy by censoring the news based on the 1917 Espionage Act, which is still in force. Edward Bernays was also appointed to the committee, and after the war, he founded the very first public relations agency. Edward Bernays is credited with creating the concept of a public relations agency. He also invented the term public relations to describe the field. He had a significant influence on the development of the field of public relations. Public relations can be used for good or evil, as demonstrated by the use of propaganda by the German Nazis. The term muckrakers became popular in the first half of the 20th century to describe investigative journalists who wrote articles about public corruption or sensational crimes. Think of tabloids like the National Enquirer or the National Examiner that print stories about two-headed babies or outrageous behavior by celebrities. Muckrakers often wrote articles with unsubstantiated allegations and over-dramatized stories. Corporations discovered a need for public relations agencies or departments to respond to these questionable stories. They had to fight back against attempts by the federal government to break up large corporations and to over-regulate business in response to popular opinion, which was frequently based on uncollaborated claims by muckrakers in the yellow press. Ivory Lee was another early public relations practitioner. He is credited with writing the first ever press release. He was famous for dealing with industrial accidents, such as train derailments. He set the standards for how crises should be handled even today. His firm provided factual press releases and cooperated with the press in order to get truthful news accounts. He advised his clients to fully cooperate with government investigators to find the true cause of accidents. His honest approach to public relations often led to sympathetic news articles. He developed a declaration of principles which stated the core values of his public relations agency, and these principles influence the practice of public relations today. What is the practice of public agency? First, public relation firms work to generate favorable coverage by the press. They also serve as spokespersons at news conferences or for interviews with individual reporters. They also create events to generate publicity for the corporation. But most importantly, they manage all the official communications of the company, either as employees of the company or as a public relations agency. The consumerism movement was born in the 1960s. It began with public advocates for consumers, such as Ralph Nader. The safety of products was the first concern, but over the years interest has shifted to the nutritional value of food and working conditions in factories that produce consumer goods overseas. Nonprofit organizations play a significant role in the consumerism movement by publicizing information about how companies conduct business. In response to the consumerism movement, some industries have formed associations that self-police the industry, such as independent labs to test products for safety. Government regulators have also grown in power due to this movement, such as the National Transportation Safety Commission, which often orders car companies to recall vehicles to fix safety issues. The most recent aspect of consumerism is social media, because false or misleading stories can quickly spread through the internet. Companies still struggle to find an effective way to deal with the viral rumors that can harm their public image. Companies need objective, factual measures of public opinion, especially from their customer base. Direct measures include the number of items sold during a period and their sales as a percentage of the total sales of similar products. Firms look also at how many customers return to buy more items and how many related items they buy. Products such as the iPod generate related sales, such as music downloads from iTunes. Companies also rely on direct observations, such as counting the number of potential customers who walk in the door and the number of visitors to a website. Firms closely monitor customer complaints and product returns to find any trends. They also look at how many customers fail to return to buy items again, which may be hidden by the number of new customers, a process which is called churning or turnover. Companies also conduct surveys and telephone interviews to measure customer satisfaction. They also call or email customers after a purchase to ask about their satisfaction with their experience. The reason for public relations to exist is to change how the public views an organization. Public relation practitioners work to create a lasting positive impression of the firm in the mind of the public. They also inform managers regarding public opinions so that the organization can adjust their actions to create a more positive image.